Good morning, Cincinnati, and welcome to the first episode of Bearcat Brunch, brought to you by Royal Links Golf Tours. Have you always wanted to play golf at St. Andrews? Have you ever enjoyed a perfect pint of Guinness in Ireland? Do you dream of playing golf at Ballybunion? Royal Links Golf Tours is a golf tour specialist offering unforgettable golf experiences to Scotland, England, Ireland, and Wales. Their custom itineraries are more than golf trips. They are immersive, cultural, and country experiences that will surprise and delight you both on and off the course. Royal Links Golf Tours is owned by former Bearcat quarterback Hayden Moore and his partner, UC alum Jeff Bartholomew. If you'd like to play St. Andrews or Ballybunion or enjoy that perfect pint of Guinness, visit their website at royallinksgolftours.com or call them at 770-331-1525. And with that, we are live and ready to go to discuss the opening week loss of UC at Arkansas 31-24. Welcome in my co-host for Bearcat Brunch, Jeff Howell. How are you doing this morning, Jeff? And what did we have for brunch today?
I haven't eaten anything today. I have drank nothing but water out of a Gatorade squirt bottle to try to fix this hangover that I've got going on.
I think several people might be in the same boat as you, for various reasons. But I'm excited to be here. I hope everybody first off has a safe, for everybody that took the trip to Arkansas, have a safe trip, safe drive back. Hopefully this is a good listen for your drive home to Cincinnati or wherever you're going. And, just a little bit of house cleaning before we get into things. This is going to be a Sunday morning, 9:30 to 11, maybe earlier than that as far as stoppage time, depending on the week. But I'm going to try to keep it right in that hour and a half window so that everybody has a good understanding of what to expect. And we're going to, obviously review the previous game. We're going to talk about, some things that caught our attention around the sport of college football. And then especially once we get into the NFL season, we'll be looking at the UC players and the pros. But, we're going to jump right in. A lot to take from this first game, especially kind of, I get insomnia sometimes and was up at 5:00 this morning. So, did some digging, trying to put some thoughts to paper on a lot that happened. I mean, I think there's a lot of different ways we can start. I'll just start with you, Jeff. What was kind of your biggest picture takeaway from what happened down in Fayetteville?
So if I give you this little tidbit, 35 plays, 5 in the opposing team's territory, 39 plays, 21 in the opposing team's territory in the first half. Who's winning that football game?
For sure. I mean, and I think that's my big takeaway is that there were plenty of opportunities.
There were a ton of opportunities. Just to clear that up for everybody that doesn't understand what I was getting at, Arkansas had 5 plays in Cincinnati territory in the first half and scored 2 touchdowns. Yeah. UC had 21 plays in Arkansas territory with 0 points. They came away with 0 points.
Yeah, I mean, we can start, the way disappointing outcome, I'm not discouraged. I'm even somewhat encouraged after I dug in even deeper to some of the, more analytic based, more, EPA, havoc rate, stuff rate, all that stuff that, you kind of like to dig deeper than just your typical box score. But I mean, they just, whether it was poor execution, I'll even say like some cases, I think there were some missteps coaching wise. There was just a ton of stuff that felt very first game. And I said this on Twitter, first game new crew vibes. Like,
oh, very much so.
First game out of the gate against a legit team, and we'll get into that. I want to get into that of like hindsight's always 2020, but like, what do you want? Do you want a cakewalk, or do you want something like this where, yes, you might lose, but your questions definitely get answered at a higher rate than if you just beat the crap out of, Sam Houston State or something.
Or you go play like UTSA.
You don't really find much out doing that. So yes, they lost, but are they not better for it? But like we talked about, a lot of questions, a lot of who's going to step up, who's not, what's going to work, what's not. I think a lot of that we got answers, some good, some bad, but just so many like first game bunch of new guys in new positions type of mistakes. I mean, like you can just go from the top and start, rolling them down when we get into the actual like talking about the game itself. But I think that's the disappointing part. Is I want to give credit to Arkansas. I do not like when fans or whoever talk about, well, if we'd have just done this, this, and this, we'd have won easily, as if the other team doesn't have good players and isn't out there as another top 25 ranked team. Like we talked about KJ Jefferson being a problem. KJ Jefferson was a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. The jump pass, which is always going to work with a guy like him who you have to protect against the run. And I thought they actually defended it pretty well.
They did.
It was
tight
just
end being 6'5" and having a running quarterback at the 3-yard line makes all that work. I mean, Ivan Pace, Trey Knox ran right by Ivan Pace. I mean, didn't clip him at all. And you just throw it up to your 6'5" tight end. But he's the storyline to me. We did not get we sacked him on 2 straight plays, but other than that, there were 0 QB hits. There wasn't a ton of pressure. He was super comfortable in the passing game, almost 7 yards per pass, especially in the first half, outside run. And I think, his outside run, and then especially Rocket Sanders.
Yep.
We did great in the middle. I mean, Havoc rate, great. Stuff rate, great. I'll get into that stuff. Outside run, whether it was losing contain on some run, especially like that 37-yard run at the very end of the half. They go 70 yards in 70 seconds.
Yeah.
And we lose contain, poor angle, 37-yard run, gets them down in position. Obviously right after a missed field goal. But, it's just, we talked about KJ being a difference maker, and he was. I mean, he didn't really put a ball in a place that you're like, man, we could have had that one. Had command of the offense, ran good RPO stuff. I mean, even threw the ball to remember one 3rd down play. It's got a big receiver on a hard slant, and he throws it high and like making sure his guy's the only guy that can get it, and he get it, complete it, convert the 3rd down. Just couldn't get him on the ground, couldn't contain the outside run. And I think that's kind of my main takeaway from just, we knew what to expect. They did pretty much what we expected. So, it kind of falls back to just the guy's just a really good quarterback and we didn't make enough plays. And then offensively, I mean, there
wasn't a lot of gel there. Like our offense just hasn't gelled together yet. And when you have it's the first game kind of jitters, the first game of, like you said, the new crew vibe. You lose all these guys to the NFL. So like you had good dudes, they're gone, and they're replaced with other guys who are probably going to be very good dudes. It's just the first game against a very quality opponent in a hostile environment with 80,000 fans. You saw the penalties that came out of that. You get the ball on the 3-yard line and you back up and end up with what? No points out of that?
No, they
get a field goal on that one.
They made the field goal on, but
yeah, I mean, on that one.
Everything, not as much in the second half, but just everything offensively felt a beat off, a beat rushed at times, a beat slow at times. Obviously, Ben Bryant missed on more than a few shot plays to Tyler Scott especially. I mean, Scott had 13 targets, 5 catches. He could have had a huge game. I mean, I'm sure the one that they would love to have back the most was kind of the seam/post route that should have been a touchdown. Ball was high and outside. Scott was kind of going more towards the post. The long balls, I appreciate what they did offensively. I liked it. I thought they were super aggressive, which to me is good. And sometimes you're just not going to hit those. So that to me is not as big of a problem. The interception, bad throw. I do not like the play itself. I do not like the far hash out route. It's like a 30-yard throw. And even him with
it's
almost
that
good of his
back
arm
across
as he
your,
has.
It's almost that back across your body kind of throw they always tell you not to make. And then, yeah.
I just don't like it. It doesn't absolve the fact that it was a poorly thrown ball. But like you said, like they intercept that. I think it was 2 or 3 plays. They score a touchdown. We miss a field goal towards the end of the half. 3 or 4, 5 plays later, after the 37-yard run, puts them in position to score a touchdown. And it's 14-0 when, you just look at it and you're like, man, there's a lot that was left out on the field. And, it's frustrating because high expectations are what we want. I'm never going to tell any fan, like, that's not how you should react. I think there's context to everything, but you react to games however you seem fit. That's fine, whatever. And we talk about high expectations. I put on Twitter, like, if you want to go from top 10 team to top 10 program, win the game, no excuses. And they didn't win the game, so no excuses. But we can dig into deeper as to why they didn't, what I feel was encouraging as far as where they can now go from here, and what we kind of see moving forward with what should be a tune-up game, then a Miami, then an Indiana before they get into conference play. So, I mean, when you look at the offense, obviously is going to get the attention because of the quarterback competition, because Ben, had some rough moments. I mean, what did you see offensively that that you thought was good, that you thought needs major work? Like, just kind of offensively, what is your takeaway from this game?
I think our offensive line is very good. I thought they did a good job of giving the quarterback time. I thought the running game looked incredible. You just seemingly plug and play 5 different guys in there and have success. I really liked what Corey Kiner was able to do. I think he had like 12 carries.
Yeah, on true running back runs, they ran it 26 times for 130. I mean, it's 5 yards a carry.
Looked good.
It was I thought it was varied. I thought it was, a lot of the same. I mean, we know the situation with Denbrock and Gino. He's not going to just like totally throw out the entire playbook. Yeah. So it was a lot of the same, but it wasn't, to me, it wasn't predictable. I think Arkansas comes out and basically plays all 4 down, which they don't do.
They usually run like a 3-3-5, right?
3-3-5 and even 3-2-6. So they basically never play 4 down. They played almost exclusively 4 down. And then you've got you call him a rookie, whatever. First start at center. Gavin Gerhardt, thought he played pretty well.
Some low snaps, but other than that, I mean,
I thought the offensive line protected fairly well as a whole. 3 sacks. James Tunstall got beat pretty bad on the sack fumble. But all in all, first game. Yes, Arkansas is replacing their defensive line, but they're not replacing them with freshmen. They replaced a lot of them with transfers. So it was going to be a stiff test. I thought Huber played well at right tackle. I think just a lot to be excited about with the run game, with the offensive line as a whole, kind of moving forward.
There was a play that at the very beginning of the game, I think it was on the first drive. It was a third down play, quarterback run, where Bryant gets and it is stoned.
They pushed him
3.5 yards, and the offensive line literally, I think the last probably 2.5 yards he gained, his feet weren't even on the ground because the offensive line came up behind him and lifted him. And I'm like, this is against, say what you want about Arkansas, wherever they land in the SEC hierarchy of good teams, but you just manhandled an entire SEC defensive line and pushed them all the way back over 3.5 yards.
Yeah, I mean, they first drive of the game, they're 3 for 3 on third downs before the interception. So, I thought, I don't know, it's tough. You can't gloss over the overthrows. I mean, that's just
that's timing. I think that's more timing.
It's timing. It's a lot of things. I mean,
familiarity with your receivers, like they haven't had. And I'm
not going to compare the two, but I don't think it's that long ago that we had the same conversation with Dez on his deep ball going from his junior year to his senior year. Like everyone was like, where is the biggest place he needs to improve? Accuracy down the field. Especially in the COVID year, the first half of the season, it didn't really start clicking for him until they went to SMU. So, for the first game out, if you're going to be aggressive and I'll even pull this, I'll look at, so people can get context of this. Yards per play, they were 6.95 yards per play, which is 95th percentile, which is very, very good. Explosive play rate, 11%, 99th percentile, obviously very, very good. So success rate, 39%, 23rd percentile, bad. So they were really good at explosive plays, really good at yards per play. They just didn't hit on the plays that they
the big splash plays.
They had at least at one point I saw 7 completions for over 15 yards. So that's what we want to see. We talk about that all the time. Is like we talked about Chad and I. We talk about this every single week last year. Who is going to score enough points to beat them? Because who is going to be able to drive the ball down the field? It's the same thing for UC's offense. You cannot win games against good teams on 10, 12 play drives. You have to have explosive plays. Mm-hmm. They had some. They had quite a few, actually. And they still left a ton out there. I want to see that continue because if you hit one of those deep balls, if you hit 2 of them, you probably win. So, yes, it's a very, very fine line.
And you have to clean up. You have to clean up the things of missing gimme field goals again.
For sure.
And is that a result of a kid that comes in from a smaller school and is now out on a field and there's 80,000? I think there was 80,000 fans there, in a hostile thing. First game jitters. I hate going back to that, and it sounds like an excuse, and I'm not trying to make it an excuse because I think Arkansas is a good football team. I think UC is going to be a pretty good football team this year. But when you have these because Arkansas had first game jitters too, but it's a little different when you're at home in front of your fans and you're not getting the same level of nerves. You know what I mean? It's not the same.
Yeah, I mean, you have a quarterback that's coming back. You have a veteran offensive line. In their case, they have he's a sophomore kicker who had a really, really good freshman year. So those kind of components are not as susceptible to that. I mean, UC just has a lot of new parts trying to mesh. And when you play a team like Arkansas or any top 25 team on the road, those little misses get exposed a lot more than if you were playing somebody at home, an FCS or whatever. To the naked eye, those things don't come up because you're just able to out-athlete them.
Yes.
What did you see from kind of going defensively? I know we touched on it a little bit. Ivan Pace jumped out. Anybody else?
Can I go with the easy one and just say Ivan Pace? I mean, how incredible is he? That was a great showing. And I'm still surprised because I've gone back and watched the highlight of it a couple times, and I don't know how KJ Jefferson holds on to the football when he gets hit on the blind side. I mean, he squared him up and nailed him in the ball. He's holding the ball in one hand. Like, that's usually a sack fumble, right? And that would have been a huge, obviously, turning point. That could have been great. I don't know how he held on to it. He's got huge hands, I guess, and a lot of strength. I thought Jaquan Shepard played very well. I thought you might be able to make like a drunk man's argument that was a safety because he tried to spin out of his grasp and was still running, went backwards. But I won't make that argument now that I'm sober in the morning. Is what it is. But I was impressed there. Obviously, he somehow shook his own helmet off his head there and then sit out. There's another thing. I think Aaron asked Luke about that yesterday. Like,
there was quite a bit of that, helmets falling off, which was odd. But yeah, I mean, Pace 12 total tackles, a sack, 3.5 tackles for loss. Shepard had 9 total tackles, a sack, had the 2 breakups that the official stat sheets are crediting them for. There were, just like on offense, there were moments too defensively where you felt like they were just a beat off. A missed tackle would allow a third down conversion. Mm-hmm. When they tried to run that throwback pass to their backup quarterback, like, we read it really well, and just Huber and I think somebody else just couldn't quite get there, and then he runs for like 14 yards or whatever and gets a first down, and they end up scoring. But
there was another play in the backfield, and I went back and I tried to find it, and I couldn't find it again this morning, but it was like a fake handoff, and we bit hard, ran right by KJ, and then he just, like, it opened up the middle of the field. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there were a couple of those things. You do have to think about the fact that, like, we were last year when you're watching, half the field isn't available to a pass. Like, we've talked about that before, and that was going to be something that fans are going to have to realize this year, that, like, we don't have Sauce and Kobe on the outside. Sorry, Peter went haywire for a second. So we don't have that on the outside to shut those things down. There was a stat that the Bearcats gave up like 0 passing touchdowns, I think, last year on blitzes.
Those 3, and then 3, they had 2.
And they had given up 2 yesterday. Okay,
and so and Jefferson was like 8 for 9 at that point in the game with 2 touchdowns against the blitz. I mean, that's the thing, is it's just a new world. Like the touchdown to Trey Knox, where he ran down the sideline, he's in line as the tight end, just kind of leaks out, and there's just nobody over there.
Yeah,
and the receiver gets like a kind of like a shield block on Jaquan, and he goes untouched. So to me, that has to be there's a blown coverage somewhere. Like, you can't have a tight end in line and then nobody, no linebacker, no end, no safety is out there with him.
And it's growing pains. It's back to growing pains of new dudes.
No, we're not used to that when you have a Brian Cook and Kobe and Saw. I mean, these guys that have played.
Speaking of Brian Cook, that was something that Chad brought up last night on the nightcap that he did, where Threats missed a tackle on the, I think it was in the last drive of
on third and 9.
Yep. Yeah, he misses the tackle. I mean, he doesn't make it there. Whereas Brian Cook probably coming downhill. I think he said, like, if there's somebody we could grab from last year and swap him back in, right there, he probably makes that tackle 9 times out of 10.
Yeah, and we get the ball back. Like, they got the ball back with 5:49 left, up 7, and we never touched it again. They converted 2 third downs. One of them was that 3rd and 9 where he got 14. And then the last one was a 3rd and short where he just ran it up the middle and got it. But like, I mean, those are the differences in this defense game 1 versus what we have become accustomed to seeing in the last 2. Like, you just got new guys, new roles against good teams, against good players. We're just not quite there yet. But at the same time, there's like, I take a lot away from doing that, especially the way they played in the first half, which was not good. A lot of the stuff can be corrected. A lot of this, and the plays were there. It wasn't like Alabama, where like you just watched it and was like, no, I'm not comparing Arkansas and Alabama at all.
Right.
But you just watched it and you were kind of like, man, it's going to be hard to kind of just do anything. Like, the stuff was there. You just have to convert. And, it's rough because we have big expectations, and they're right, and they're there for a reason. And I don't think anybody should lower them.
No, not at all. I had a friend who is a very, very big Ohio State fan, and
I'm sorry.
I know. And he sent me a message yesterday and said, "Welcome to fandom of a team you expect to be successful on a regular basis. It's bad for the heart." And I was like,
yeah, I mean, I don't think you should expect to win every game, but when you've won a whole heck of a lot of them for the last 3 years, that kind of, mindset isn't a bad thing. But, and we got a couple comments from Sam and Alex. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you jumping on this morning about the running backs. And I agree, like, Corey, I'm not sure what Corey's gear is, but Corey seems to be always moving forward. Very rarely seems, even when like things were kind of plugged in the middle, still seemed to be able to squeak out 2 yards. Like, keep it moving. Had a nice jump on his touchdown run, and again, Alex mentioned Chuck. Whenever Chuck is healthy, he has that ability, man. Like,
it's amazing to see what he can do now, considering everything he's been through, and to still have like that ability now.
Yeah,
it's pretty. I mean, the screen pass that got called back on.
Don't get me. I mean, I hate the refs guy, but like, if you're going to call that a hold, you could call a hold on every single play. And I guess
he was trying to hold.
He was, but he didn't. That's the thing, is he was reaching back, trying to hold him, and he didn't really hold him. But it was like the effort of the implication that he was trying to hold him was enough to throw the flag.
And flagged his mental game.
It felt like it was really, really late too. I don't know if maybe that's what Luke was mad. Like, Luke was very mad after that play. I don't know if maybe he saw something else that Arkansas did that should have been called, or if he was just mad specifically at that call and when it came and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it's the running back room. I hopefully, not sure what happened to Ryan Montgomery. Hopefully it's not too serious.
Well, and hopefully it's not too serious, but I think it's also like one of those things where like maybe like if he tweaks something a little bit, they have the luxury of having, like I said at the beginning, like they can kind of plug and play these guys in and out. So maybe he tweaks something and it's hopefully not serious, but they're like, hey, we got these other guys. Let's not run the risk of making a slight tweak an issue that's going to keep you out for numerous weeks.
First game, you you do something to your hamstring or something, and yes, you could probably maybe go back in, but if you do you end up doing something worse where you're out months or whatever, and you have a good group of running backs that offer varying things, and I think they both fit. They especially yesterday, I think Chuck and Corey got the bulk of the carries, and they fit well with trying to implement the screen game more and doing stuff with Corey inside and off tackle. But yeah, I think that's why I'm encouraged is that the plays were there to be made. They just didn't make them, and maybe that continues, and they just keep not making them, and that's another discussion to be had. But
you can always play. You can always play the like if this
right.
game is in 3 weeks, does it turn out differently? Well, but if it's in 3 weeks, then Arkansas has also got three games that they play. You know what I mean? Like,
sure, it's you could play a lot of when would this game have been best played, and would you have liked to play him this time versus this time? I mean, it's 6 and 1/2 dozen in the other, but
or you could be like Arkansas and have BYU scheduled in the middle of your season.
Makes no sense. But Brad asked Dave, and we'll put this to you: what individual players really well on defense? Obviously, we talked about Ivan Pace. I thought the defensive line as a whole played pretty well against the run. Interior wise, it still I still have questions about the pass rush. Mm-hmm. And that was a big thing we talked about coming into the year. Like, do we have someone that can at least somewhat replace Majay's presence on the outside?
Maybe Ivan gets there, because I feel like sometimes they were playing like this weird, like where they had 3 down line, but then they snuck.
Yeah, they hang Thomas kind of as almost a 4th down guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a hang edge type guy. But they've got to be able to get more pressure. And maybe they will against, give Arkansas's line credit. Veteran line, 100-something starts. Played well.
You can't.
Maybe they'll be able to generate more pressure from the down 3 against other opponents. Maybe they'll start incorporating different pressure packages and stuff like that. But I thought outside of Pace and Shepard, there wasn't a ton that necessarily jumped out outside of the defensive line. But
Deshaun really had kind of
he missed some stuff, and I don't think it would be considered his best game.
Yeah, no. But that could be like maybe he was trying to carry a lot bigger of a load than he really needed to. Coming back in as a guy that everybody's putting a lot of weight on. Luckily, his brother stepped up and looked every bit like he deserved to be the MAC Defensive Player of the Year from last year.
Yeah. But one number that jumped out to me because of how good they were last year, it was red zone defense. Arkansas was 4 for 4, 3 for 4 on touchdowns. And last year, if you got in the red zone, you were very rarely, if ever, scoring a touchdown.
Yeah.
And so, just another piece of a lot of new guys and new positions that need to find their footing. And I think that's kind of where I settle in on the whole, was this good to play them right out of the gate? And I tend, after watching and kind of digging into this, I think it was good. Granted, not the loss itself, but
right.
I think it's more important long-term, long run this season to get as many things answered on tape, whatever you want to say, about this group with as many new parts as they have as soon as you can get them.
Yeah.
I don't want to wait till, I don't want to play, somebody, Kennesaw, Miami, and then play Indiana and wait till week 4 to find out these answers. I want them now.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think we got a lot of answers yesterday. And I think the one thing that I saw this a lot on Twitter yesterday, and obviously people on Twitter are
on Twitter.
Smartest. They're the smartest people in the world. But saying stuff like, "Oh, the rebuild is on. It's a rebuild," and I actually would go the other way and say like, it's more of a reload, and you're gonna have well, like we've said already 100 times, some first games, some like gelling together. You have a quarterback that he's got experience. He played well at Eastern Michigan last year. And he's replacing a guy that is in the NFL, and that is the third winningest quarterback in NCAA history. Like, he's replacing somebody that is very good, that had very good rapport with everybody that he was playing with at the time. He's coming in. He's had camp, and he was here, left, and now he's back. But these are all new guys he's playing with. He's had hired spring and then the fall camp to try to get timing and all those kinds of things down. And sometimes it works out really well, and sometimes there's some growing pains, and there's a little bit of growing pains. But I thought he looked better in the second half.
Oh, the whole everything outside of the debacle that was first and goal from the 3 looked much better in the second half. And like you said, these aren't, people call them excuses, call them whatever you want. Like, you're more times than not, you're not going to just hit the ground running when you're replacing your starting quarterback, your top target wide receiver, your running back that did what Jerome Ford did, your center goes out in the week whatever leading up to the game. Your 2 starting corners, your starting safety both get drafted in the top, 4 rounds. Your main pressure piece on the defensive line. Like, we are confident in the guys that are going to be filling those roles, but I'm not sure we should, they're not going to just come in and automatically replicate the production and the success that those guys had. I mean, they might, and they may exceed it down the line, but I don't know if it's fair to just come in week 1 and just be like, oh yeah, all these parts are just going to coalesce perfectly. And, we're just going to go to Arkansas and everything's going to go right. And we're going to hit on all cylinders, and, everything's going to be just like it was last year.
Yeah, that's a very fair statement. And
I want to get to Kenny's question, because I do appreciate it, and I know a lot of people are asking it. Like, do you think we should incorporate Prater on goal line scenarios because of athletic ability to mix it up, similar to what Notre Dame did last year with Buckner as backup? I do personally, I like the idea of having special packages for special players. I don't have a problem with that. I'm also not a coach. I don't think coaches like that.
Yeah.
I don't think Luke and this staff, if they're anything, they are loyal and committed to players, sometimes to a fault.
Yeah. I also think, though, and I know I've talked about this, we talked about last year or so, like this coaching staff, I think, because I'll say it this way. When we came into the spring and then we found out that Ben Bryant was transferring back and that there was going to be a competition, I went to granted, I graduated a long time before he did, but I went to the same high school that Evan Prater went to. And so a lot of people are like, oh, you're a homer for that and whatnot. And I said that this coaching staff has, I think, earned the right to make the decisions they're going to make, and maybe not be criticized too heavily on it because of what they've done here.
What was the moniker? Trust in Fickle?
Trust in Fickle? Yeah. I think you've got to.
They went the whole spring and the whole summer, and they made a decision.
Yeah.
Will it be the right decision? Will it be the wrong decision? I'm not here to say one way or the other, but I think it's a little much to, after one game, all of a sudden be like uber critical of that when none of us were there every day. None of us saw anything. Chad was there every day in practice, but he's still not seeing nearly everything that goes in to these decisions. And if they felt that was the right decision, then that's what they feel. And, we've seen in the past, especially like Dez in the COVID year, Pickle. Dez in the COVID year really struggled. And almost, a lot of people were talking about putting Ben in. And Luke stuck with him. And that next week after the South Florida game, he went to SMU and it just exploded from that point on.
You also have to think how much of a I don't know, how much does that affect team confidence too if you go in and throw the axe on your quarterback that you've picked after the whole team has been there, right, through the spring and then
they see everything
the fall.
Too.
They've seen everything, and so your guy goes out, he struggles to hit some things, whatever, he has some issues here and there. What does that say to the rest of the team if your quarterback gets axed that quickly and
week one?
Right, you know what I mean?
Right, you can't show much confidence to the rest of the team.
We've got to sit back and I mean, I told you before we even went live that I went into a very very long rant, but I like to keep these things not on public channels. When I go a little crazy sometimes. Aaron and I had a good talk back and forth yesterday. We both kind of agreed. And he was like, "You're gonna get this take out before I do," but then he got it out last night on the nightcap. It seemed like things were a little. It might be the most boring half of football that we both agreed. In the Fickle era, the first half was just it just seemed, I don't know, it seemed like a lot of this, a lot of the play calling in the first half was a little safe. On a lot of, I felt like there was a lot of swing passes, a lot of short kind of things, and then and maybe that's because they were missing on the long ones, and they're just hey,
right,
our running game is working pretty well. Let's just keep that up. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I've always wondered going into the season, should there be some packages to take advantage of what Evan does best? And I say that knowing that that's not how this coaching staff operates.
Yeah, Luke has said before that he's not a fan of of having two quarterbacks that that are, I don't know, maybe seen equally because you've got packages and things.
So I try to keep my thoughts and opinions based in reality. I don't really see the point in having an opinion that I know the coaching staff is not going to do.
To implement.
I just don't see them having a couple series, a half or something, them putting Evan in there. So I'm not going to say they should do it because my opinion is not what their knowledge is. So I don't, it's not something that I really give too much credence to. I mean, I want to answer some of these questions real quick.
Yep.
Jason mentioned how KJ got the ball relatively quickly and didn't take too many, if any, downfield shots. Definitely that plays a part into it, limiting the pass rush. And their RPO system, you have to respect his run. And so when they're doing a lot of the RPO stuff, it's hard to necessarily, hard charge up. But I still felt they needed to be able to get a little bit more pressure. I mean, no quarterback hits at all on 20-something dropbacks. Obviously outside the 2 sacks, I think can be somewhere where they improve. Sam asked after yesterday, do you think 11-1 is realistic expectation? Absolutely. I have a very, very hard time thinking that they're going to play anyone the rest of this year in the regular season and maybe even the conference championship if it's Houston based on, again, week one. I think everybody, whether you have a great week one or a terrible week one, needs to temper expectations because of week one and exactly what Luke said. We're the only sport that gets no scrimmages, no preseason games. We're just out there figuring it out, and they had to figure it out against a team that most people think is going to be pretty darn good on the road. So especially, and we'll get into this probably when we talk about the rest of the sport yesterday, holy shit was the AAC bad. So there is not much in that league this year that has me worried that this team can't go 11-1 and can't go back to the conference championship.
Yeah. Weird. I talked about it with the group of people I was with yesterday when we were watching the game, and I was, it's disappointing to see a loss, and this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. you want to play a game like this at the beginning of the year? We got our answers to some questions, probably more than like we would have if we played Kennesaw State, like you said earlier. But like when you see the things that went on in the rest of the league, and then across the board, I still hate preseason rankings. I think they're stupid. You've got to, I mean, is Georgia like the greatest team on planet Earth because they went out and smashed an Oregon team that might end up like unranked? I mean, is Oregon going to turn into like the Indiana of last year?
Georgia is still awesome.
Yeah. Like, oh no, they're very good.
What they can do with their offense, and then they got 3 guys on defense that are easy first-round picks. I mean, that they didn't even break us. I mean, and none of us probably saw much of that because it was on at the same time as the UC game. But man, I don't even know if they broke a sweat in that game.
Well, we had it on a separate TV. Like we had like 3 or 4 TVs going, and I think I looked over like once or twice, and I was like, "What's going on over here?" But obviously, I wasn't like paying enough attention to it to see what was going on, other than the fact that they took them out to the woodshed and didn't let them come back to the main house.
Yeah, so, I mean, yeah, we'll get into that. You know, good question.
Didn't Georgia score on the first 7 touchdowns on their first 7 possessions?
Was it 7 for 7?
I think they had 49 points on 7 drives.
They won 49-3. So
I know 100% they scored on their first 6. And then I looked up a minute or 2 later, and they had 49. So I just assumed they touched the ball 7 times. The first 7 times they scored a touchdown. Yikes!
Yeah,
1, 2. Well, it went punt. So Oregon started with the ball, and it went punt, and then Georgia scored a touchdown, and then Oregon threw an interception, and Georgia scored a touchdown, and then another interception, and then Georgia scored a touchdown. Oregon then got their only points, the field goal. And then Georgia scored another touchdown right at the end of the half, and then another touchdown. And it actually looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, so 7 going into the second half. They scored touchdowns on in a row.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've, I just here's the margin for a game like that, and I think this is where again, I kind of come back to the encouraged part is I'm just going to read you all the things that UC screwed up. And granted, a lot of that had to do with Arkansas as well. But 7-point game on the road, and all of these things, or most of these things, are procedural, or I would say, can be addressed, can be fixed type of stuff. So after the interception, they score. We go down. We have 2nd and 3 from the 6-yard line. Not sure why, but we threw, and then after Kiner runs of 4, 11, and 8, we go throw, miss a short field goal. Obviously, we've talked a bunch about the 1st and goal from the 3 pre-snap penalties, a chance to tie it at 21, that whole debacle. We miss a field goal. Arkansas takes it over at their 30 with 70 seconds left. Bust the 37-yard run. Touchdown to end the first half to go up 14-0. This team never gives up drives like that. 70 yards in 70 seconds never happens.
It was actually 70 yards in 57 seconds.
Yeah.
So it makes it even worse.
This one might have bothered me literally more. I think I was more upset about this next play than anything that happened in the game. The last play of the 3rd quarter, I have no idea why we were rushing to get that play off.
Yeah.
It did not have to happen. We take a sack, then we have the holding penalty to start the 4th quarter on the screen to Chuck. Like, we're again in position to, I don't remember if it was to tie the game, to cut it, whatever. But again, in position, end of 3rd quarter, moving the ball. Why are we in a hurry to get a playoff there?
I don't know. We talked about it with the group I was with yesterday, like it was kind of almost because that also then led to Ben Bryant's helmet coming off, which apparently.
Yeah, I thought I felt like at the end of the quarter that didn't, not that it didn't count, but that I thought that counted as like a timeout to where
I thought that as well, but I guess they, like Luke said in his press conference, that they asked him if they wanted to
use a timeout
to bring him back, and he was like, his actual statement from that was, no, have you seen our other guy play? And so he put Evan in, and Evan gets an 8-yard run.
But it was on second,
and then it went
22.
right to the, and then it goes to the McClellan 3rd and 15 screen to the weird like hold thing.
Yeah.
I think that was going to, maybe was it 24-17 then?
It was 24-17, and it was 1st and 10. They had just hit Chuck on a 30-yard pass on 3rd and 3. And it's 1st and 10 at the Arkansas 21. And we hurry up and try to get that play off. We get the sack. Then Evan comes in. Then on the 3rd down play, 3rd and 14, they hit Chuck again for 24 yards down, whatever. I thought he scored.
I did too.
Inside the 5, that gets called back for the holding. Then they punt. So you have that whole thing. Then,
well, wait a minute. They were gonna line up for a field goal there, right? Is that the one that they lined up for a field goal, and then there was an illegal formation or something?
There was another penalty. Yeah. Yeah, it was going to be a long field goal, but they were going to because you had a penalty delay of game at the Arkansas 35, so it would have been a long field goal attempt anyway. But so they punt it, they hold him again. Trey gets a 30-yard kickoff return. So again, you're down 7, 1st and 10 at the Arkansas 37, and then you go 2 plays and you give up a sack fumble, and then 2 plays later they hit Knox down the sideline with nobody out there. Like, all of those things happened that are fairly out of the ordinary for this team and the way that they've done things in the past. Like,
I think the penalties though. What, last year they were like 110th out of 130.
They got better last year. I think in 2020 they were very near the bottom. Last year they got a little bit better. I'm not really one that cares as much about penalties, except these ones yesterday were a lot of false starts, delay of game, illegal procedure, stuff like that. The
delay of game penalties were very, I don't know. I guess, you go back to maybe, again, first game, not everything is like flowing the way you want it to flow. It seemed like maybe the play calls were coming in a little late, or Ben wasn't ready to go. I don't know. Yeah, but you can't have, what was it, like 3? I think they had 3 delay game.
They had the 2 on the drive that started at the 3. The second one, to me at least, looked like he was yelling with a couple seconds left to get it snapped, and it just didn't get snapped. The first one might have been a procedural thing; it didn't get in time or whatever. But yeah,
then you're looking at also a new center.
Well, that's the thing is, Ben's yelling to a new center. Is he still maybe directing stuff, and he's a second slow directing stuff to the line and recognizing the front, and then he's not hearing Ben because he's not quite just. All of those things that I think, like we've talked about, get glossed over when you beat somebody 63-10.
Yeah.
At home, are amplified in a game like this. So, I think that's kind of where I sit on this game. It's frustrating as hell because, like we've said, there were plays to be made, and they just didn't make them, and they shot themselves in the foot a ton. But they also didn't defend the outside run great. They didn't put much pressure on the best player on the field, arguably the best player on the field. And they didn't win the kind of the miscellaneous stuff, the special team stuff, and the turnover battle, and all that stuff didn't go their way. So that's what happens, and that's why you are looking at a 31-24 loss to start the season, and then you come back this week with Kennesaw State at home, which is a triple option team. So it's probably going to be ugly. They're going to grind this thing down and, try to minimize possessions, and we're gonna hopefully not get like too antsy and trying to take kill shots left and right because you feel like you got to maximize your possessions. But we will see.
A lot of the stuff though that we didn't. I don't know that we've said enough about it, but our wide receiver group, we like those throws were there, right? Like it was there.
Open.
Like
they were behind the coverage.
Like we weren't unable to throw the deep ball because our wide receivers were. I mean, and our wide receivers were cooking their DBs.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking like 2 steps. Yeah. A couple of them were just like blatantly wide open. You missed a pass. It happens. Like I can look at it now today after 24 hours or whatever and say like that stuff's going to be there this year, especially against like the teams we're going to play for the rest of the season. And you hit a couple of those and then maybe we grind the game out with the running back core we've gotten.
Yeah, I mean, they got behind the coverage. They got open. It wasn't a case of like we didn't make 50-50 catches where contested stuff. I mean, they were there to be made. They just didn't make them. And I'll go down swinging that's the kind of offense I want to see because I feel more times than not they're Tyler Scott and Trey and Ben. They're gonna connect. They just didn't yesterday.
Yeah. And you have to look at it and you got to give credit to Arkansas. Like they capitalized on the opportunities that they were given. And like, I don't like saying, that Arkansas didn't win, that UC,
right.
beat themselves.
We lost. They didn't win the game. We lost
right.
the game. No,
I think
that's not really how
that's
it works.
An easy cop out, I think, because Arkansas played very well. We knew what we needed to do. I know you guys talked about it at the end of last week on the BCJ podcast. Like you can't let KJ Jefferson beat you, and we did. We didn't do enough to contain that. Where we knew that we knew what they were going to do. We just didn't do enough to contain it.
Yep. So we move on to week 2, and big thanks to everybody that's in the chat, that's listening live. Please like, subscribe, do all those things that, join the YouTube channel, follow everybody on Twitter, all the fun things that we ask you guys to do. Leave a comment in your iTunes or your Spotify. But big thanks for jumping on for the first episode of the Bearcat Brunch. All right, so we talked about an hour about the UC game. What did you see while you were watching everything else that happened on a somewhat wild, somewhat predictable first Saturday of college football?
Well, I think NC State found out what it's like to play ECU, and ECU should have won that game. I mean, they had the opportunity to win it, 3 times over the last 5 minutes, I think.
That was, yeah. I mean, they missed an extra point. Obviously missed the field goal at the end. Had 2 fourth and goal stops. At some point in the second half, I don't know. Every year it seems like there's some what I say, middle of the pack ranked ACC team, and I'm just not buying it. Everybody loves NC State's quarterback. I mean, I think they showed yesterday that they're not the 13th whatever team in the country.
I saw people saying that I saw several people saying that they think that they could be a playoff team.
Well, I mean, the ACC is bad, so not if they play like they did yesterday. They're not going to beat, certainly not going to beat Clemson. I don't even know if they play Clemson, but yeah, I mean, ECU, Houston.
I mean, I guess UTSA, they won. They only lost 1 game last year.
UTSA was good last year. They're clearly good again this year. I expected more from Houston in that game. They got down 21-7 early, came back. Obviously went to triple overtime where you just do the stupid 2-point conversion thing, which I hate.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that at all. One of my buddies I was with was really not a fan of it because the line on that was like he had Houston, and then the line I think was like 3.5.
Yeah,
is where he got it. So,
he's not the only one that had the Cougs.
So then when it goes to that, like then the only margin of victory is 2 points there. So that was
yeah. I mean,
that wasn't good for him.
Like, I mean, I think what was Navy lost to Delaware. Tulsa lost to Wyoming, who got absolutely boat raced by Illinois last week. I think the teams the AAC beat this weekend were South Carolina State.
Mm-hmm. Temple.
No, Temple lost.
No, Temple lost
30-0 to Duke. SMU beat North Texas. So you got North Texas, South Carolina State. Who else was on there? Big wins did the league have this weekend?
Yeah, none.
Yeah, it was bad. It was really, really bad. After Memphis got rolled by Mississippi State. BYU crushed USF.
Tulane won.
Oh, who'd they beat? Oh, they beat UMass.
UMass.
Yeah. That's a big one to hang on the ledger. I mean,
South Florida got smoked by BYU.
UC's loss at Arkansas is practically like the best thing. I mean, I'm saying that half joking. Right. It's practically the best thing the league did all weekend.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't know.
So,
maybe that's all just first week jitters.
Oh yeah, yes, that's what it is. But yeah, like the Anthony Richardson, Florida quarterback.
Yeah,
he is a unit. That dude is, man. If they can get him rolling, he's kind of got some Cam Newton, Vince Young in him. Does a big win at home against Utah, who I think is pretty darn good.
Yeah, what are they, 7th? Right?
I think they're in the top 10.
Yeah. So a 3-point win there at home.
Georgia's defense still dudes. Georgia's tight ends dudes.
Stetson Bennett, like probably he's gonna have a movie made about his like college career. Like that's 100% gonna happen.
Yeah, for sure. Alabama, obviously. I mean, there was one play in the Alabama game where they didn't even block Will. Well, Utah State didn't even block Will Anderson, and it was hilarious how quick he was in the backfield. I was like, everyone's like, you might want to put a body on that guy.
Yeah, I think maybe some people have heard of him.
Yeah,
the Pittsburgh West Virginia game was pretty good.
See, it's so awesome, and it's like, what is going on in the sport is what drives me so crazy that stuff like that has to go 11 years without happening, and you're having these rivalries and stuff just totally stripped away because
of realignment and money.
Yeah, because people feel like they're not making enough money, in this conference versus that conference, and like, yeah, but you're also now playing teams that your fans do not care about.
Yeah, they don't like. We talked about it on PTP like last year at some point. I know it gets talked about on probably every podcast that covers college football, but and you look at the rivalries that just don't happen anymore, and games that aren't played. It's just, I don't know. It makes for sometimes college football to sit there and be like, I'm not really sure why I need to be invested in this other than I'm a fan of this team. There's not the build up and excitement all the time behind going out. We have to go out and play like Kansas or something. That's
right. I mean, we've lived it since the AAC. Like, we haven't had one I guess UCF became that very recently, but like those two teams did not play for 11 years, and it was 70,000 people that literally wanted to just rip each other's throats out.
Yeah,
and we haven't had that for. I mean, I guess UCF the last 2 or 3 years has kind of started to get to that level, but I mean, we've gone a decade, haven't had a single game that feels like that.
When was the last time we played? When was the last time like the Keg of Nails was played?
What, like 13, 14, something like that? That year, right when the last year before Louisville went to the ACC.
See, like that was a great one. You know, like,
oh yeah.
I mean, obviously, like we still play Miami, but it's not like this. I mean, it's not the same kind of outside of like, you know, the fact that like here locally, like, yeah, it's nice to keep playing them, but at some point you're gonna have to cut that. You're gonna have to cut that game out.
I don't even want to get started on that one. they hung in with Kentucky for a little bit yesterday. I mean, I don't know. I'll have to go back and maybe read some notes to see if Chuck Martin said they were trying or not. But did you see the North Carolina App State game?
Yeah, 40 points in the fourth quarter.
Lost,
and then they lose.
Like when Carolina returned that onside kick for a touchdown, and I was like, "Oh
Did
God!"
you see that though?
I was like, "Oh God!" If App State scores, like you could have ended the game by just not literally doing anything other than scoring, and then in 20-something seconds, App State does go down and score.
Well, on that onside kick, I mean, it looked like App State put a high school team out there because their entire like the whole line on the side, like the recovery, the hands team, they all got blown up. Every one of them. They were all on their backs. There was like, I mean, I could have returned that for a touchdown. It was insane.
Yeah, I was just like, oh my God, if he returns, if they then go down and score, and then they did somehow go down and score.
I mean, how do you score 40 points? I mean, that's
in the fourth quarter and lose.
I don't know. And then we had obviously OSU and Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Notre Dame's defense, obviously, Marcus Freeman being there, you would expect
Notre Dame's
their
defense strong. Notre Dame's offense with Tyler Buckner. Not sure that the Buckeyes defense has taken that big of a jump in game one with Jim Knowles, as I feel that like Notre Dame's offense might be not so hot because, I mean, I think he complete 2 passes in the second half. I think they had like 75 yards of total offense in the second half. Ohio State's offense not scoring 50 even against Notre Dame, I think is the surprise. Like everybody I mean, me included, like I was just like, dude, how are you going to stop that offense? And they were not successful. I mean, they were relying on their big play was by a former walk-on wide receiver made like the play of the game for them.
Yeah. So and maybe that is also, I mean, but see, those guys, like they've played together, and you're at home in that, like you don't expect that kind of turnaround. So maybe Notre Dame's defense just really is that good.
Yeah, I mean, I think
they reined them in. It's not like they, won the game for them or anything, but they kept it to a point where if their offense does anything, it's probably, maybe Indy can pull it out there. But.
Yeah. I think Ohio State fans, I'm sure they're, not thrilled with the way they performed, but that was kind of the style of game that they lost the last couple of years, where like if the pass happy offense isn't going, then we don't really have an answer. And they kind of like, okay, the pass happy offense isn't going, and they ran it down Notre Dame's throat in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter, to get a win that they just, you got to get that win. So I'm trying to think what else. Someone mentioned the UCLA crowd. Yeah, that was a funny picture. Them being down 17-7 to Bowling Green was also hilarious because they're one of the worst teams in the sport. And they ended up coming back and winning pretty comfortably. But yeah, there were like entire sections of the stadium that had no people in them, like from the field all the way to the top. I saw USC return 3 interceptions for touchdowns against Rice, which is pretty impressive for both teams, that you could throw 3 that get returned and that you return 3 for touchdowns. The one that kind of jumped out to me, and Jason mentioned it with Oregon State, is is Boise done as like the darling kind of, what they have been talked about for so long? Field?
Yeah.
They got smoked.
34-17.
It wasn't that close.
Yeah, they scored they scored their 17 points kind of at the end of the game.
And they had a rough year for them last year. Another, new coach. Brad, I won't even talk about Iowa's offense. I won't do it. Like, I have a friend who I went to Tennessee with, and his wife.
There's nothing to talk about.
I know. His wife and her family are like diehard Iowa fans, and I was like, Dusty, I really hope you're not he's a daughter. She's like around 1. It's like, I really hope you're not making your daughter watch this game right now. Like, I want her to have a good relationship with college football. Iowa's defense not only outscored South Dakota State, they outscored Iowa's offense.
If you look at the box score, it looks like maybe it was it's the first 4 innings of a baseball game.
I just if you're an Iowa fan, how much do you just hate the fact that you are wasting what has been for a long time, like consistently a really, really good defense and an exceptional special teams. And like, you always have good offensive line. You always have good tight ends. Do they just not try to be good at offense? Like, because I'm just trying to understand, like, we have good offensive line. We have good tight end. Why can we not also have good wide receiver, good quarterback? And like, if they scored 28 points a game, they'd be in the Big Ten championship every year.
That comes down to recruiting, right?
Recruiting, development, the whole nepotism thing that they have going on there with Brian Ferentz being the offensive coordinator and Kurt not willing to fire his kid. And like, just
speaking of getting fired, how long does Scott Frost have left at Nebraska?
Did they almost lose that game to South Dakota?
I mean, they came back and ended up, they won 38-17, but
still not great. I mean, it was close. I know I saw that.
Yeah, it was 7-7 at halftime. Like,
oh God.
I mean, I saw a thing the other day, like after Nebraska lost to Northwestern, that Scott Frost could win the next 50 games in a row, and he still wouldn't have as many wins as Bo Pelini had when he got fired.
Oh yeah, I like this question from Joshua. More overrated Big Ten coach, Ferentz or Franklin? I would say Kurt Ferentz has done an incredibly good job at Iowa, but he's just, for whatever reason, he's hell-bent on not modernizing his program. James Franklin, being an SEC guy, being a Tennessee grad, what he did at Vandy is still maybe, to me, one of the best coaching jobs in the last 50 years. So I can't say he's overrated because of that. What he's done at Penn State, I'm sure they think is, one New Year's Six trip, I think maybe 2, no Big Ten titles, no playoff appearances. You're going up against Ohio State every year. Everybody has a tough time with that. But
does the other big news from college football, the 12-team playoff, maybe that ends up helping some of that stuff 100%. Out, right?
I mean, that's the whole thing, the talk of like, I think the 12-team playoff likely stabilizes conference realignment.
I'll say it might save college. I mean, because let's be honest, like if you look at the playoff and you look at the teams that are always in it, that are always going to be in it. And I saw like some takes like, well, like it's going to be where like Alabama and Ohio State, now they're not, they lose a game, but it's not going to matter because they're still going to be in the playoff. Well, they're going to be in the playoff anyway.
Yeah, nothing changes for them.
And now you're giving more spots and availability and some coaches on some of these teams that end, their top 10 teams usually, they can go in and maybe get some other dudes. You're not going to have, 5 5-star quarterbacks that want to go to Alabama because
Right.
that's the only place they can go to and have a pretty, Alabama, Ohio State, whatever, like have these guaranteed spots in the playoff. You can spread that around a little bit. Hey, we can go to the playoff here too because there's 12 spots and we're going to have a chance to play for a national championship.
Sure. I mean, I think if you look on it one side, yes, the argument of like, well, now Ohio State, those teams don't have, like, they can lose a game and still go. That is true. But
they can still lose a game and go.
Right. But I think the thing that I think the most people look at it is, yeah, that's true. And maybe they can even lose 2 games and still go. But it also means that, like, there are a whole new, much larger subset of teams that go into November with realistic possibilities of going to the playoff. And that's the part that that the sport needed. The sport needed to be strong, East Coast to West Coast, every league top to bottom. You could not continue down this path of 4 teams getting in. And like, if you weren't in the top 10 come November, you almost didn't have a shot. Now you could barely be in the top 25 going into November, and you technically probably still have a shot based on if you win out, if other teams lose. Like, it just means that, so many more fan bases have a reason to pay attention, even if they lose a game. Like, that's the part that sucks so much, was if you lost a game, like take UC, for instance, like under the current setup, we lose yesterday, no chance they're going to the playoff. Even if they were in the Big 12 under the old format, probably no chance. New format, you lose to Arkansas. Arkansas goes on and has a really good season. UC wins the Big 12. They're going to the playoff at 11-1.
Yeah. And now, like, the way you look at it now, like, UC's goal is a New Year's Six Bowl. They're gonna fall out of the top 25 this week. That's just gonna happen. That's how it works. They're gonna have to fight to get back into the top 25 and climb up to hopefully
it'll be
get a
hard.
shot at.
It'll be hard to do it because they're going to be doing it against all these teams that we just mentioned that lost to Delaware and Duke and
Right. Yeah.
So they're not going to get a ton of credit for that, but try to go 11-1 and just kind of see what happens. So let's take a look real quick. NFL starts Thursday. Your biggest takeaway, the thing that caught your attention the most from the UC guys, could be the new guys in the league, could be a standing NFL player. Who are you most looking forward to seeing when the NFL season starts?
Well, I think everybody's answer is, you want to see how Sauce does being named a starter and getting that. I mean, is
anybody going to throw at him?
I don't know. I mean, they didn't in the preseason. I mean, obviously, I think the NFL is a different beast. Like, I don't think anybody is like saying that Sauce is going to go his whole NFL career and not give up a touchdown. I mean, that's a little bit absurd. I was surprised to see. I don't think he got signed even to Seattle's practice squad. Was that Joe DeBlanco got?
Yeah, I don't think I saw that.
I mean, I think we all thought he was probably going to get waived out there, but I thought maybe they would bring him back on their practice squad. I didn't see that. So that was kind of surprising.
I know Kurt Brooks got signed back to the Colts practice squad.
Okay. And then obviously it sucks. It was Beavers got, he was looking really good. Like, he was in line to make the team and do some things there, and he gets hurt. So like, that sucks because I think the world's greatest player is also on that team, Michael McFadden.
Did he make it? I don't follow the Giants too closely, but
I didn't see if he
actually, probably did. I mean, if Beavers got hurt, that probably helped him out.
Kind of interested to see, did the Falcons name a starter for week 1?
I think Mariota's always just been the starter. I don't think that was actually competition, but I'm that's the thing I'm following.
Dez was
he was real good in the preseason. Now, granted, against mainly 2s and 3s. So
yeah,
but I'm just following them from if they start out, I don't think they're very good. If they start out 0 and whatever, like, do they go to Des at some point? Is his first game starting when they come here to play the Bengals? I think it's about like week 6 or 7 or something like that. Because I think that's at some point that's going to happen. He's going to be the starter because they need to figure out what they've got. Because I don't think they're going to win many games that tells them that we need to play Marcus Mariota a ton.
Right. I mean, I went on a Falcons podcast like last week, 2 weeks ago, maybe, and they were all very, very high on Desmond.
Yeah,
taking over and being really good and being their dude, which I encouraged heavily. So.
Oh yeah, yeah. So yeah, I'm watching that for sure. I think Alec Pierce looks like a likely starter for the Colts. Jason mentioned Kobe. Yeah, probably starting or getting a lot of action in the slot. Trying to think. Brian Cook for the Chiefs will probably. I think he's their second team safety, so he'll get a lot of run on special teams, which we know he has no problem, running down there and knocking some dude's head off. So it'll be fun though. I mean, I think some teams might have more than one, but I think half the league has a Bearcat now. You got your mainstays, Kevin Huber, Jason Kelsey still getting it done.
Mm-hmm.
So
this is Kevin Huber's probably last year, right?
I would think so, but I mean, I thought that was kind of a surprise to me. I did not think he was gonna win the punting job.
I wasn't as surprised. If you look at his average punts and across his career, that it really hasn't dropped off drastically.
He had a rough end of the last season. Was not great, but it sounds like he kind of built as camp went on. Obviously, Drew Chrisman's going to have a stronger leg. He's 20 years younger than him.
And the other thing that I can't I thought that Huber would get the nod based solely off familiarity as far as holding the ball for because if you looked at I think it was the ECU game yesterday, the holder on one of those is either the field goal or a point after. I think it was the point after, didn't get the ball spun all the way around, and he had to kick the laces.
Laces out.
Come on, Einhorn.
Derek Forrest has reached special team ace status already.
Has he reached? My favorite one is, has he reached special teams maven?
No, just ace. He's only at ace.
Okay, that's one of those cheesy ass NFL lines that
But
all the beat writers and team reporters are always special teams maven.
What is good about that though? You can make a lot of money as a special teams ace.
Oh yeah.
You stay in the league for a long time as a guy that just runs down on kickoffs and punts.
That and if you can long snap.
Oh yeah.
A lot of money long snap.
Yeah. Mr. Mark asked, and we'll get what is your prediction on the Bengals record this year, Jeff?
I said probably 11-6.
That's kind of where I fall. I have not yet kind of just gone straight down the schedule and done the old win, loss, win.
Yeah, I haven't done that either.
See what I come up with. I think last year, just to be a jackass, since it was the first year of the 17 games, I said 8-1. So this year I'm a little more bullish. I think some of the regression things are quite funny. Like the one guy that was kicker regression was a reason that they weren't going to be as good. I'm like, okay.
I mean, did he watch any of the preseason?
He might miss some kicks. It happens, but I don't think they're going to be appreciably worse because Evan McPherson all of a sudden is 75% on field goals.
Right. Yeah. No.
No, but I mean, obviously they got all the pieces. There's a lot of question marks in the divion.
I mean, their playoff run was incredible, right? There's no denying that. I mean, they won
defense. Games, Evan McPherson carried them in the playoffs, and they're going to play them. On paper, a tougher schedule. We'll see what that means when the game actually happens.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think there's any reason to think that they can't go back to the playoffs and can't go make a run. Like, I'm just that big of a Joe Burrow stain. Like, if that dude's on my team, I will never doubt that they're going to win.
Yeah, no, it's obviously like incredibly difficult to go back to the Super Bowl,
for sure.
Like repeat and go back. But to say that just because they're not going to, somebody's like, oh, they're not going back to the Super Bowl, it's not a successful year. Like, I still think that they make the playoffs. I think that they win the AFC North. They go back to the playoffs, and then you kind of got to let the chips fall where they may in the playoffs. I mean, it's one and done. Like, you have a bad week and you're out.
Went into the playoffs last year, obviously not expecting it to be a defense that carried them, to the Super Bowl. So, limit injuries, offensive line be not terrible.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know if they have to be good.
I mean,
just not terrible.
Yeah.
So
I am worried a bit about the fact that, like, I mean, obviously there would be a drop off for anybody to step in behind Joe Burrow, but I think there's like a cliff where they fall off the backup quarterback.
I've always been of like, if your backup quarterback needs to like play a legit amount of games, your season's over anyway.
Yeah. I'm just more so worried that like there's seemingly like no one that is, I don't even know if you can fill in like a half game. Like
Lamb Big. Did I drop an extra? Did I drop an I in there?
Yeah, you did.
Oh well. I'm not hip to the lingo, I guess. Oh well. Yeah, I mean, if Joe Burrow goes down, like, that was always the Colts thing. It was like, who cares who the Colts backup is? If they need him to play more than like 2 games, the season's over anyway. So,
and luckily in the NFL, you can stomach maybe 2 losses here and there, like,
for sure.
Right? Like,
for
you
sure.
can
totally depends on who they're against when they hit on the schedule.
Because it's not based off rankings, just pure record. So,
but yeah, so I think that about covers it, and we're going to come in right at the
hour and a half mark.
So I want to, again, thanks to Royal Links Golf Tours, great sponsor. We're going to try to get Hayden on a couple times to recap some games. I've already kind of had that conversation already, so we'll see what works for his schedule. Get him on to talk about some inside stuff that we talk about, but probably make asses out of ourselves, for not truly knowing what's going on.
Right.
But big thanks to them. Big thanks for everybody coming on this first episode. A lot of fun, a lot of good questions, good conversation. Looking forward to the BBP I guess tomorrow night, Labor Day edition. Hearing all the details from Aaron and Brent down in Fayetteville. I want to know if Brent, if he got a couple pops in him and maybe called the Hogs once or twice without anybody around him knowing, but
Aaron did tell me when they first got there, like the beginning of the game, he said that he accidentally showed his fandom a little bit in the press box, and he was like, I'm just glad it's an open air press box because it covered up my like displeasure with it. Something happened on the field. Obviously,
did they drive down there together?
I don't know if they drove down there together.
Oh man, I wish they did. I would have liked to have
no. Aaron drove, Brent flew.
I would have liked to have had like a 24-hour film crew with those two in the car down to Fayetteville. That would have been
a Bearcat Journal vlog of Aaron and Brent riding together in a car for like 11 hours.
That would have been fun. But yeah, so they'll have some more recap tomorrow. Get their experience from boots on the ground. We'll have, maybe a little more on it, doubtful, on Wednesday. This is the whole setup. We're trying to have that be today so that everybody can kind of get the quick reaction right after. And then Chad and I will talk more about Kennesaw State, which I don't know.
the run up to the next week's game.
We might be recapping a little bit more of this game because I'm not sure how
short show this week, Dave.
Yeah, short show Wednesday as we preview Kennesaw State. But thanks again, everybody. Jump in the rate, review, subscribe, all those fun things. We appreciate it. and looking forward to this every Sunday moving forward. Hopefully, a bunch of wins we can talk about.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we're not.
I think we'll have a lot of
I
wins.
hope we're not the curse. Like we come up with a new podcast to talk about the games, and then they just start losing them.
No, I don't think that's going to be an issue.
I don't either. But hey, it's been my fault before when I go to games and bars. So I hope this isn't the same thing.
And we'll have to also at some point this year we need to reach out to conference realignment expert Dan.
It's pretty early for Dan.
Yeah.
It's pretty early for Dan. He likes to burn the midnight oil on the phones.
Oh, all right. Well, maybe sometimes we can get it scheduled
we'll
in.
See. We'll see. Maybe during the bye week, we're gonna need some content then.
Yeah. All right. I'm looking forward to that.
All right, guys. Well, thanks again. First episode, Bearcat Brunch in the books. Looking forward to a big year for UC football. Everybody, have a great day, and we will see you next week.